Welcome back to the Sens Spotlight podcast, brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. And before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and that really helps out the show. Today, we are joined once again by my colleague at Sportsnet, Jason Bukala, just to talk about the Sens draft and a couple other things. So I think you guys will really enjoy. Jason's always the best. So hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Send Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson bursts the speed, gets a shot away, scores! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we were once again joined by Jason Bukala. I'm just how relieved and how, exciting was the draft for you?
The draft is always super exciting. It's the Super Bowl for people like myself who prepare all year long to see what we might have got sort of right, and in the future what we hopefully didn't get wrong. And it's so it was great. The Ottawa had an interesting weekend for sure. The Senators did, as did a lot of the Canadian teams with their selections and how they value players. So that was fun to kind of observe and take stock of. The city of Buffalo did a fantastic job. The league, it was much better this year, the draft in its entirety compared to the year before. But a lot more atmosphere, about 10 or 12,000 people in the building, which was really fun. So, it's in the rearview mirror now, though. A new season starts, and before off to Edmonton for the Hoen Gretzky tournament next month, and a brand new scouting cycle begins.
When do you start looking at the next draft? Like, do you give yourself a month, a couple weeks, a year? I know you can't do that, but what's it like for you?
So my staff, we've already got a list of 75 players that we've identified as potential high-end talents for next season. So you start building your futures list through the course of the season, and then you religiously get after it, starting at the Hoen Gretzky. That's the official start of the new scouting calendar, and August, and then it's not a slow burn. It's a race to next June, but at the same token, I do things in segments for players. I don't know if everybody does that or not, but I like to see a player at least a minimum of 5 times. We probably start to slot him into an actual list of where I believe his value lies, and that takes time. That takes scouting.
How much, before we go to the Sens, how much does your list fluctuate from the one, made, let's say, like at the start of September after Olinka versus the ultimate list that you have in June right before the draft?
I think it fluctuates quite a bit, to be honest with you. There was at the top of my draft class this year, there were moments where I had Keaton Verhoff number 1. Obviously, I landed on Ivor Stenberg for people that were following along at Sportsnet. I had landed on Stenberg 1 and McKenna. McKenna was the one guy that never really fell out of the top 3 all year long. He was right there. But, players like Vigo Bjork and, Marcus Nordmark fell out of he dropped like a rock in my rankings. He was a top 10 guy at the beginning of the year for me, and he fell all the way down into the 50s. Anaheim stepped up on him in the late 20s because that's the kind of talent he is. There was just some other concerns that I had. So, yeah, it fluctuates quite a bit. I would say, especially with goaltenders, too, I really have to give them a lot of time and get to know them. So that one there is my goalie list really kind of bounces around a little bit.
Steve Stais talked about his move recently for Urson and kind of saying, I just kind of talk to our goalie coaches because they're the experts. Do you have like someone that you rely on to be your goalie expert, or are you a goalie expert?
Well, I was a goaltender growing up.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I was a goaltender growing up, drafted to the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds and played Tier 2 hockey. So I feel like I've got a decent handle on trying to analyze, but I do have a couple of people on my staff that really specialize in the mechanics of a goaltender. And but yeah, I feel comfortable. We've had a pretty good run, like even in Florida with our goalie drafting, not just because of me, just because of everybody in the room, including Rob Pallas, who's the goalie coach still for the Florida Panthers. And Yeah, it's not an exact science with a goalie too. They generally take 2 contract cycles before they become NHL players. The first 3 usually you're seeing somebody like Marilyn, and he spends times in the minors. Mads Solgaard, you don't have him anymore, but he spends a lot of time in the minors before they pop at the NHL level. Dan Vladar took a long time, even through the Calgary Flame system, etc. So it takes time, but I'm not going to call myself an expert, but I think I have an eye for it.
I'm curious, like kind of going to the Sens. Like it felt like in the past, and we've talked about it, where it felt as though they looked more for guys with higher floors and maybe lower ceilings. And it feels like they completely changed on that in this draft. I'm just curious before we get into the picks, like from your vantage point, like, is there a preference? Do you feel like it's better to reach for the ceiling rather than the floor? Is it very dependent? Like, what's maybe your philosophy on it all?
I'm always the best player available kind of a guy, because I don't know what the asset is going to plane out to look like. So I'm taking, they have to always, we've talked about it before, Alex, they have to qualify with 3 staples, which is they're going to have to play fast enough, think the game appropriately, and I need them to be a relentless competitor. So the first 3 things I always look for in a player is that. And then on top of that, you start looking at, well, skill, to be frank, skill. And, what can they bring us in terms of pushing our opponents back on their heels and making them feel uncomfortable? You are going to get into slots still later on in drafts, middle rounds, especially, where your general manager is going to say, we need to get more powerful in the bottom of our forward group, a power winger, for example, or we need a shutdown D. Somebody's going to block shots with his nose, stuff like that. You need some input. But for me, unless I'm told otherwise, I'm always drafting just the best available player on my list. I'm not drafting for need ever, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a call on a good prospect. He may never play for you. If you are good and you have a good prospect pool, people will call you and they'll be interested in making an NHL hockey trade and including your assets. So never fall too in love with your prospects, because basically they're assets until they arrive. But they have to be attractive enough to the entire league. And that's the problem when you start drafting just for your need. You have to think outside the box. Is this player an NHL player? Would everybody need or have interest in this player? Because that's how you manage assets.
Just to the first round picks, let's just start at 25. Jonas, Lagerberg, Hoen. Just, he wasn't, like, I was sifting through your draft list. Like, I didn't see him in the top 100, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just curious what you make of the reach, it seems like, although the Sens said that they believed another team would have picked him between 25 and 32, but just maybe talk about the player, the prospect, and the pick.
So the reason he was not in my top 100 was he was hard to find this year just because of injury. He played a very limited amount of games, 9 games, I think was the end total. He had a knee injury. And he's 100% healthy now. Everything's fine. So that's good news, first of all. The year before is when we did sort of have an eye on him from a distance. And the reason was because this kid puts the puck in the back of the net. I mean, he's going to win the Cy Young because he's going to be like a 30 goal and 4 assist kind of a guy. But, he's got good size. He can play the game with the pace that you need to play it at the NHL level. But what he really does is he shoots the puck. Like he might have. There's certainly an argument to be made that he has the hardest shot coming out of Sweden, maybe in the draft class. His release is really, really good. He's gonna have to get there, like wander into areas to get the puck. But off the rush, and when you're going to see him as he develops, that he's when he sees an opportunity to shoot the puck on net, that's what he does. Like he doesn't defer to anybody else. So goal scorer, and if Donnie Boyd, I've known Boydie for a small little tidbit here. I talk about me being a goalie. Donnie Boyd was the head coach and general manager of the Sault Ste. Marie Grounds in 1988 he drafted me to the Sault Ste. Marie Grounds. So that's how long I've known Boydie, which is now, I feel old. No offense, Boydie, you must feel older than me if you watch this, but because you are Boydie, you are older than me. But anyways, if he had intel that they were going to lose him to another team, so be it. That's a aggressive pick, but to your point, it's not a safe pick. That could be a home run if it all comes to fruition.
Do you feel like he has the attributes where it can be a home run? Like, obviously, it's so early, and a lot of things will happen between now and ultimately whether or not he makes the NHL and what impact he has. But do you see the talent level to be a really impactful NHLer?
Well, he's got top six offensive upside, with his goal scoring prowess. Not everybody can do what he does with the puck. That's a fact, and that you don't teach that. If you can run as many skill drills as you want in a practice and try and work your power play with your power play unit, but they have to have the ability to see what's going on, and they have to have the confidence, and that one element has to stand out above and beyond other people in this kind of area. And the fact that he shoots it and puts it in the back of the net better than most, for sure, is very enticing. So yeah, and he's got top six upside. He's a goal scorer. We'll see where it goes.
Just moving forward, because like their other pick in the first round was another reach and another really interesting story in Jackson Cover. Just like what do you make of the pick? Again, he was kind of more, from what I could tell, more like a second round, maybe third round type of player. Obviously lands at 32. Great story. Maybe just talk about what you see from him and just the Sens pick at 32 with Cover.
Yeah, so this is an interesting pick, right? Because, and the story about where he came from and his inline hockey, the way that he was an elite inline hockey player. When you watch him play, and I live right here in London, so I saw Jaxon play, more than a lot of other prospects. You absolutely see the offensive upside there. There's no question. He loves having the puck, and he craves making plays and scoring goals, and he's got a swagger about him. He's got that swagger when it comes to the offense. The rest of it is going to take some time, and what I mean by that is just playing the game the right way off the puck and learning how to be a more complete hockey player. He's never going to be a guy that's going to kill penalties at the pro level. That's not going to happen. He needs time, and he just needs to continue to do what he does, which again is create offense. And he got off to a really good start in London this year. Down the stretch in playoffs, they played Sault Ste. Marie in playoffs, and they were not a juggernaut, but the London Knights weren't the same team this year as they were the year before. So he got surpassed by a couple of people in the lineup in playoffs, but that's just part of the process. So top six upside. He's quick. He's got an unusual skating strat. He's not a bad skater at all. Like he's a good skater, but he's got an unusual stride, and it stands to reason just because he grew up playing inline hockey. So it's a little bit different.
How do you find his hockey sense as? Because I feel like that's such an interesting, maybe developmental curve for someone who's only been playing ice hockey for 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. His awareness on puck, off puck. Stick on puck defending, there's some wandering to his game at times. I can totally see how he was an inline guy because, there's no red line and they're kind of in motion. They're wandering around all the time. And it's a little, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was a reach for me for where I had Cover. I did have value in the player, but I'm still not sure about where his hockey sense is overall. In relation to his elite element. If he figures it out, then his elite element will continue to rise and he'll have a successful career. But there's some growth that needs to be done in all the small intricacies of the game.
Do you feel like a team like the Sens, like obviously the Tkachuk trade happened and they're not going to replace him very easily and probably not at all. Do you think it's wise for the Senators to, in a sense, in this draft, take two guys that you can see clearly how it could become a home run if everything worked out in both players' cases, one with an injury, one with just the fact he hasn't played hockey that much compared to his peers? Is that the right thing to do when you're in a place where you kind of want to maybe not expedite a rebuild, but kind of found money because that you're not going to likely be too bad for the next couple of years? Like they're kind of in the mushy middle now without Tkachuk.
Yeah, no. I understand what you're saying, and this is where every NHL club values list building and values players. They had a player type that they were targeting in this draft. They had a value system in place, and they stuck to it. So for me to sit here and say one way or the other whether it's going to work or not, that's very, very difficult. it was an aggressive draft for them in terms of projecting high end upside. It was aggressive. With that aggressiveness comes a lot of risk. So my biggest fear here is that you get two players that don't make it. That's obvious. It's always like that for any draft, right? But to your point at the beginning of our conversation, the floor with these guys is much lower than some of the other players in the top 50. The floor is, but the ceiling with these two guys is much higher as well. So, did they take some risk? Yes. Would I have done it differently? I don't. You saw my list, so my list was different. But they had a plan and they stuck to the plan, and good on them for doing that.
I'm curious, like from your time, with a bunch of organizations in Florida and everything, like Boyd said something interesting after the first round where he said, when we had all those high-end skilled guys coming in, like Stützle, Sanderson, Tkachuk, we felt we had to kind of insulate them with draft picks that maybe were higher floors, but, much lower ceilings. And now that basically Tkachuk was gone, they needed to reach like that. Like, have you ever heard of a version of that kind of, I guess, changing of draft philosophy for what the team is? Like, is that a commonplace in the league?
It really depends on the cycle that you're in. So he's referencing a cycle, and so are you, sort of, Tkachuk going out, and so you have to start to restock the cupboards in certain categories for sure. But again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's also for me about asset management, building assets, and these assets here are going to take a little bit longer to materialize. They made a choice to go in a certain direction. The rest of the league as well will be taking a look to see how that goes. Like they'll be monitoring how that goes. And obviously Boydie wants these guys to wear Ottawa Senators jerseys, like we talked about. But
of course,
they have to be NHL value. They have to have that value. And in Florida, I think back now that you say it or you ask the question, there were times where we were coming out of drafting, before I got there, they drafted like Huberdeau and Trocheck. And then we started adding the Barkovs and the Ekblads when Dale Talon was the general manager. Even when in 2019, we drafted a goaltender, Spencer Knight, who we felt was really the best available player at that stage. It doesn't look like that early in Spencer Knight's career, but you have to give that a lot of time because
he's been great.
If Chicago Blackhawks get really good, he's going to be playing a lot of games, and that's big. But in between all that, we drafted some players that were bigger, stronger, kind of needed to add the power element as well. So I guess, you do make some changes sometimes. Is my long answer to your question because your organization is in a certain cycle.
Just with the rest of their draft, was there any player, they had 3 third-round picks. Was there anyone that you kind of liked more so than others? Because I don't think we'll go through every single pick, but it was one of them that you kind of liked maybe in the third round between Nemec, Holmertz, Bork, or maybe Lennon the goalie. Or...
Really quickly, like Nemec and Holmertz, I'm looking at my reports right now as I speak to you. Those two guys, again, a player type, right? So you're looking at, again, skill. Nemec is slight. He's not heavy, but he's got tons of energy. He wants to produce offense. Holmertz is the same. He's got lots of skill, probably more talent than where he got selected. To be honest with you, this is where the draft was. Players were the guy that's interesting to me, and he was in my top 100 list. Is Louis Felix Bork from Drummondville. Why do I like this guy? Well, he's 6'2", equal part shooter and distributor, but I'm a little hesitant to say distributor. He's more like a guy, they're not accidental assists, but he's not like pure pull up off the rush, look for a later, he's not that. But he'll be in the fight and he'll extend plays and he'll make small area plays, and you'll see a lot of his assists come that way. But he was intriguing to me because, when you get a right shot, he's a top rookie in the Quebec League. He's intriguing. I think that's an interesting one there. He might pop off too and end up being one of those middle six guys who has at least secondary scoring and size and a little bit of pushback.
For sure. And I think he's quite on the younger side, which I always find interesting in draft classes. It's like, who's the younger players? I feel like they have maybe not higher upside, but there's way more room to grow. Like, is that something that you look for in players and when you're analyzing them?
Absolutely, because I'll give you an example. If you look at the top of this draft class, McKenna, Stenberg, even Chase Reed, these guys were late birthdays, late birthdays. And you get into the younger guys like Bork, who almost have a year. It's not quite a year, but you know what I mean? They're almost a year younger. And it makes a huge difference in terms of, think about it. When you're 17, 18, what did you look like when you're 17 to 18 or 18
Versus
to 19?
18, huge difference.
It's a huge difference. So, you look at that kind of stuff. The age, you're looking at the best player still, and then you're like, oh, do you know what the bonus is? He's got a lot of growth ahead of him because he's so young. So.
Maybe just quickly on the Senators before I let you go. Just what was your thought of maybe your initial thoughts on the Tkachuk trade, and then maybe the ensuing moves by Steve Staios?
Clearly had to be done. We already know that. The whole world knows that. What they did in bringing Eklund in, I think, is fills a need for sure. He's going to be way different than Tkachuk. Everybody's going to be different than Tkachuk. I don't want to under. What's the word I'm looking for?
Undervalue.
Yeah, I don't want to undervalue the value of Tkachuk. Okay, but I also feel like there's some people, or I feel like we're getting a little bit carried away too. If you understand what I'm saying, like this isn't Wayne Gretzky. Tkachuk, and you moved him out, and if you look at his statistical analysis and his metrics and stuff like that, yeah, it's a power forward. Yes, there's some offense there. Yes, but it wasn't a 100-point guy. You understand what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah.
Like I feel like they went out and got Eklund, who has to very much clean up his game defensively. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like he absolutely does. His 3-zone effort, his exits, the way he needs to compete harder needs to be better in everything. He did 2 years ago. He was actually a little bit better than he was this year. And it shouldn't have been that way because San Jose was better this year than they were 2 years ago.
Sure.
But I think you're looking at a 65, 70-point guy in Eklund, and that's pretty good, right? So, that filled that position differently, but it was a required, situation that they got themselves into.
Did you feel like, and I know like we were texting about it a little bit because like I'm like I don't watch enough San Jose outside of here and there to know about Eklund, and you seem quite high on him. Like what do you like about his skill set?
Well, first of all, he plays the Senators. We've talked about this before. The Senators, to me, need to play faster as a team.
Yeah.
They need more speed, and so he's going to track much quicker up and down the ice, and that's a good thing. Okay, so like Stützle, he's obviously going to get a chance to play at the top of the table, so he's going to be playing with a skilled guy who plays fast and he's tenacious. So the first thing I love about him is he's faster. Okay, so that's a skill that they needed to interject. He creates offense. He just does. That's a fact. He creates offense. The rest of it, I have to. I'm trying to be clear here. I'm trying to be clear and fair. Top 6 guy, maybe a top line guy in Ottawa for now. But when you get really good, maybe he's just a top 6 guy, which is still really good. Better than secondary offense. He'll land on your first power play unit. He'll create offense. Period. Great. The rest of it, though, there's more bad days than good days in the NHL. What are you doing? I think he had 53 points this year. What are you doing on the nights that you're not creating offense? And on those nights, we need you. Like Tim Stützle, he's sort of evolved too, right? He's much more a dog on a bone. He's always kind of been like that, but now he's doing it differently, if that makes sense.
He's almost like smart, more like in a better positional way and everything. Yeah.
Right. His routes to everything, the way that he approaches it has been better. That's what Eklund needs to do next. He needs to go to another level that way. So I'm marginally concerned about that there's going to be, because I can't have you produce offense and also deliver a pizza up the middle of the ice or not back check properly or lose your man in coverage and the puck's in the back of our net. So we'll see where it goes.
Did you feel like that was the right approach for the Senators? Because like I feel like they could have had a very good case for just keeping the pick and doing a retool on the fly. Like, did you feel like Staios should have kind of gone out for a guy like him?
I think they needed an NHL ready body to come in for sure. And they obviously had some sort of a plan ahead of, like, by the time when that lands on his table, well, it was there for a while. but they're building their amateur draft list. They're looking at the amateur draft. They're targeting who could be available in free agency in the NHL or in trade. And when that all goes into a melting pot, they needed a body on their roster to produce offense in return right now. Because like you said, they're kind of in the mushy middle. I feel like, if they get good goaltending next year, more consistent goaltending, like this team was pretty good. People forget this was a good team last year. They really were. If you really want to take the long lens, they were a pretty good team. If they get a better goaltending, more consistency, I think that was the approach he took. And he said, I need somebody because we're pretty good now. We need somebody to create offense.
For sure. In Ottawa, there was a lot of, let's say, I don't even know, maybe puzzling feelings about the Burakovsky and Urson moves. How did you feel about those two moves from afar?
Burakovsky's on the back nine for me. He's not a guy that he moved the needle a lot more for me previously, like several years ago. We'll see where that goes. That's a maybe, I guess, is the best way. He's a good teammate and all that kind of stuff. He's flatlined a little bit, right? So he needs to find a new spike in his game. Samuel Ersson, it's interesting. Like Philadelphia, where it's so hard on a goaltender when you're Philly. If you think back a couple of years ago, and what Ersson's been, it's been unpredictable. I guess you could say.
Not
right?
good. Yep.
Yeah, unpredictable. And but his baseline is there. Your goalie department will get their claws into him. He's got size. He's plenty athletic enough. He just needs to be way more consistent. How do you get more consistent? You feel the puck more. You put in the work. Basically, you stop more pucks in practice. You train better. All the most simple things that just make complete sense, right? Feel the puck, work more. It's like it's like when you play golf. You go out to the golf course, and I shot 75 2 weeks ago, and then I don't play for 3 weeks, and now I can't put it in the hole for my life. Well, Ersson, he was kind of like that as a goaltender so far in his career. Really good night, and then another night you're like, oh my goodness, buddy, like he couldn't stop it if it was a soccer ball going into the net. So it's going to be a process there.
Yeah, let's hope it works. It's interesting that Staios kind of, put it on the goaltending coaches. So I think I know what's going to happen if Ersson struggles. But anyways, we'll see.
We'll address that when we get there. We'll address that when we get there.
Maybe last one just on Yakemchuk, because I think I might be having the same maybe kind of over exuberance like I did for Maryland last year with Yakemchuk. I'm excited just to see what he is. I think he's a top 4 defenseman, but I think he can definitely impact winning in the NHL next year if things go right. Like, where do you see him fitting in with the Senators team next year? Is it put up or shut up time for him to be an NHL player? Does he need to marinate more in the AHL? What do you see?
I think it's time. It's time. It's been a couple of years of development there. His defending in the American Hockey League has been average to average plus, I would say, on any given night. Never outstanding, but his offense is still there. We've talked about this before, and if he can just be good enough in the 3-hole and do what he can do offensively, go get out on the second unit power play, maybe the top unit. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
He's the right shot. He's a big body. He makes plays with the puck. His offensive element is there. He needs to make the team. He needs to keep things simple. He needs to defend with purpose, and that purpose might only be that he contains and keeps people to the outside. He's a big body. I'd like to see him use that more, at the NHL level, but it's all going to come down to timing. I still think he's got middle pairing upside. I really do. So, but he's got to prove it. Yeah, he's got to prove it. Yeah, I know you and I are going to talk about it again coming up.
I know we are, Jason. I just want to say thanks again for taking the time coming on, right after the draft, right before the draft. We really appreciate it, Jason. And I hope you get some rest because you definitely deserve it. So thanks again.
Thanks, Clay. I look forward to seeing you in the fall. Alex, take care.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.